everybody. Welcome to For the Fans Entertainment. Kevin was about to start the show. I loved it. I saw him about to go in there and say, and then he's like, oh my God, oh yeah, Sheldon does this. Okay. Welcome to For the Fans Entertainment coverage of Big Brother Canada Season 10. I'm Sheldon, joined by OG Kevin, and we have our resident expert now with a new haircut, Josh Vitello. Hello, Josh.
Hello.
So it's been a crazy week so far, and I think it's about to get crazier. The reign of Kyle Moore ended. Kyle Moore II left the house. The entire house had the ability to breathe a sigh of relief. But holy crap, everybody took that breath, and the week was a reset. But things got a little crazy, a little messy, a little insane. We got a lot to talk about today. We have a brand new HOH with a really cool and fun competition. We got 2 new nominations. We have some interesting conversations. Then we see Jess acting like Jess from the first week again. So much happening this week. But before we get to any of that, I wanted to go back to something that happened in the episode last week. There was a really wonderful scene. We didn't get that much time to talk about it last week because we didn't have enough time. And in truth, I wanted all of you lovely people here, Josh and Kevin, around with myself in order to have this conversation. But there's a great scene between Summer, Helena, and Marty, where Summer was explaining her experience as a Black woman in Canada. Marty really taking it in, trying to understand, trying to ask questions, and then relating it to some experiences that he has as an Acadian Canadian, and as a hockey coach, and what he hears in locker rooms, what he hears from his young hockey players. I thought it was a really interesting scene, and I think it was an important scene to have, especially in a cast that is as diverse as it is. But I know whenever I have questions in my life about race, I'll be honest, I spend a lot of time in my life with a lot of white people, with a lot of Jews in particular, because that's where I grew up and that's where I live and that's who's around me. And one of the people in my life who's taught me a lot about things I know nothing about is Kevin. So I'm interested. Well, what were your initial thoughts, Kevin? What did you think about that discussion?
So I don't know if you guys already knew, but this show is a Summer Stan account. This is a Summer Stan page, and I as I'm watching her talk about having to love herself and her skin before she could love anything else, I was realizing why Summer is needed for this. We need Summer for this show. Her talking to Marty, I appreciated how receptive Marty was. One thing that was really interesting was Helena being in the room, and Helena is half, I believe, half white, half Indian.
I think she's
full Punjabi. Punjabi. But I believe in her pre tape, she was saying how she has definitely she has moved towards her Punjab side more than from before, because she was much more Canadian. She felt like before. She embraced her heritage more. And it was interesting watching, because when you're black, when you're a black person, your skin tone is very obviously different, right? I look very different than Josh, very different than Sheldon in terms of my complexion. So it is a thing that is very obvious and very prevalent. When you look at some people are what they call white passing, right? And so when you see Summer in the room with like Helena and with Marty, Helena's a little bit more white passing than obviously Summer is for obvious reasons. So with her saying that she had to love her skin before anything else, and she had to come to acceptance with that, I thought that was very interesting. Now,
Kevin, what does that mean? Like, I don't think I understand fully what that even means.
So we live in a world where it's predominantly white, right? That is our cultural makeup here in both the United States and up there in Canada with you guys. So realizing that you're different to begin with is one thing. being around and working in spaces in what are considered white spaces is another, right? Because you're very obviously different looking than the people that you're with. And so you're going to be you're going to be judged, you're going to be looked at because you are obviously stand out comparatively, just in general. So when you say it's love your skin, especially when you're younger, when you're a kid, all you want to do is fit in, right? All you
Mm-hmm.
want to do is fit in, and being black in a white space, all you do is stand out.
Hmm.
Like you have no choice. Like it's just who you are. You look different physically than them, and it's something easy to pick on. And so for some kids, depending, especially the ones that grew up in strong white spaces for black kids, it is a different experience. I personally am from Los Angeles, so I grew up around a lot of black people, and I saw a lot of people that looked like me. And then when I moved to Orange County before moving to Las Vegas, which has predominantly white people, I was at that point an adult, so I had already I knew who I was. You know what I'm saying? I didn't care about fitting in. But when you're young, fitting in is so important. I have a real quick story that's not quite my own, but it's a good friend of mine. His name is Aubrey. Aubrey is mixed. He's half black. He's half white. Aubrey though is about a lighter complexion like my own. He's a little bit lighter than I am, but he was telling me a story maybe about 2 years ago, um, that when he was a teenager, he grew up in New Mexico, and they grew up on a base, and him and his friends, white friends, were doing whatever they do as teenagers, right? They were doing something that they weren't supposed to be doing. The police pull him over, and the police they give them a hard time, and Aubrey's thinking nothing of it. Boys will be boys. They'll let us go. They called the parents of the three white kids, and they took him to the station. And he didn't understand why, because as far as he was concerned, he was as white as the rest of them. And he said that was the day he realized that he was black. And he was like 16 or 17. And that experience made him realize. He said, as they were questioning them, he said he was sitting in the back seat. He wasn't even the driver. I think they all had like beer or something. They had something that they weren't supposed to have. Like they were doing something. Like I said, they were being kids. They were doing kid stuff that they weren't supposed to do. But the fact that he said those other three friends of his were treated differently than he was is the day he realized he was black. And it's hard because you sometimes if you stand out like Summer, you got to realize that it's okay because there's nothing. That's just who you are.
Correct.
And so her talking.
One of the things that stood out to me, and I feel bad to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
She said that she was called the N-word.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that a little bit shocking. Not that I don't believe her, I certainly do. Mm-hmm. But that's not a word I hear.
Same. I never heard that word. Sorry, go ahead.
Called that. Kevin, is that something? Have you ever heard that word? Like,
yes.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's
calling you maliciously.
Yeah. I mean, it has been.
Wow.
But it was a person that was attempting to antagonize, like it's intentional. It wasn't accidental. I mean, if someone's looking to pick a fight, it's a very easy button to push. You know what I'm saying? It's very obvious, and so it's not. That's definitely something. And now it doesn't happen often. It's not like when I'm walking down the street every day. That people are not just like, "What up?" You know what I'm saying? They're not just saying it to like antagonize me, but it's definitely especially being black. There are things that have happened. I don't know about Canadian history, but in American history, there are things that have happened throughout that have made it very easy for you to point to a couple of those things to come at us. And I don't know about Canadians' history with race. From what I perceive, it's probably similar, but not quite the same. I don't know if slavery was a thing in the provinces.
Yeah, like it was.
It was, but it wasn't this. It's not the same. It's not the same as in Canada. And the truth, and I'll be honest in saying that. Sorry, it's not the same as in the United States. I meant to say, but I don't actually know Black history in Canada. Like that's the God's honest truth. Well, the only thing I know about Black history is actually learning about the Underground Railroad and how we were sort of the saviors of Black people fleeing slavery in the United States. But at the same point, they never told us that we also had slaves in Canada, and nobody talks about that, or at least I didn't learn about it while I was in school. So the truth is, like, my history of Black people in Canada, outside of my relationships with Black people on a day-to-day basis, is we were the saviors, and I don't think that's true.
I mean, like what's interesting about that is that like the things with me is that like I wanted to like show you both something, but
there's Josh showing his Black lives.
Black fist.
Yeah.
Yes.
The reason, so like here's the thing, like after a little bit of a quick backstory from my end is that like as I'm like going through high school and such, I came up with someone who is a light skin that like came around and joined the basketball team, right? She was like completely different towards everybody else, and like the interesting thing about it is that like when she was like when like we decided to hang out and like we got to like I got to know each other on a personal basis, right? She laid out like exactly like what her experiences are, what her cultural differences are, and also the fact that like there is like and what racism is like based upon towards down in Canada. So ever since that moment, I have been doing research on all a bunch of things. And what I've discovered is that like for like us here in Canada, yes, it's not quite the same as the US, but it's very, very similar in various different aspects. I never knew that we had I never knew that we had slavery down here in Canada until I did some research and found out that like it was actually ruled under Britain. And I'm like, dang. So before we declared independence, we did have slaves. So that's why Canada was known to have slaves in the past. So I think like what we need to do, like in terms of like for Canada, is like we need to understand that like racism is everywhere, no matter where country you are, or no matter like or like any far wide in the big wide world that you're at. So just try to like just acknowledging and learning what privilege is, racism is. And it's just like whether it's systematic or any of those kind of formalities. So like it's very, very like deep rooted for like mostly in North America, like as far as I know. In terms of regular countries, I don't have that much knowledge on it. But I think with the conversation when Summer had towards Marty, it actually brings me back to like there is a lot of differences, and like if we're willing to like make those changes to make sure that no POCs ever have to feel that way again, then you know what, it is a stepping stone in the right direction.
One thing that I do find interesting and understanding as I'm watching BB Can is that apparently what the impoverished group for you guys, I guess, is the indigenous people. I guess from what it sounds like, they're just like here in the States, the Native American people are the ones that are marginalized are also marginalized for us. From what it sounds like, there's a large indigenous population that is in Canada that is underserved. Well, is that true?
So 100%. But the history, I would argue that we know the history of our indigenous people a lot, and the negatives around it a lot more today, because we had literally millions of dollars spent on research, on reports, writing something called the Truth and Reconciliation Report. And we have a history in this country. When the British came and the French came, we sent indigenous kids to residential schools, which are not schools. They were basically indoctrination centers where they were tried to turn into Christians and the Catholics. And you know, I think the quote is like the point of the schools was to take the Indian out of the child. Like that was the point of the school, and that's a quote, right? And so in our history, that sort of, I don't want to relate it to like the Black history in the United States, because we also have, you know, crappy history with Black people in Canada too. But and I don't think we should necessarily sit here and say, oh well, these people had it worse than these people and that people like I'm not sure that's a necessity. But yeah, that's something that's really top of mind right now in Canada, which is part of the reason why when I saw Jay on the show, when I saw Josh on the show this season, both Indigenous individuals, I thought, okay, well, this is kind of cool. Last year ago, there was Kiefer. Kiefer was somebody from last season who really represented his First Nation really well. And truth be told, again, I don't live on a reserve. I don't know any. I don't know any Indigenous people in my day-to-day life. I don't. I know Larry Grossman, who lives down the street. He's the only. I know the Jew down the street. That's all I know. And, that is for me a big part of Big Brother Canada is that. I don't know any Indigenous people, so I get to know these people. I get to know these people, and it's not necessarily personally, but it's quite the experience. We've spent
before just wrapping this up real fast. So I just pulled it up. Apparently, I just pulled it up on Wikipedia. Apparently, Marcel Trudel estimates that there were fewer than 4,200 slaves in the area of Canada and later the Canadas between 1671 and 1831, but around 2/3 of those people were Indigenous.
Yeah,
2/3 of those slaves were Indigenous, and only 1/3 were of African descent. So the Black people have had a rough go also in Canada, but from what it sounds like, the Indigenous were the ones that they just treated as the same.
So certainly, but we were doing more than and we is a really weird thing because I wasn't here. I wasn't born. None of us were here. My parents were in Europe. Right, but the Canadians at that point were basically not just treating them as slaves, but trying to say we want to take the Indian out of you. We want to make you white. We want to make you, part of our religion, part of our values, part of our stuff. And I don't know if that's the history of the United States with Black people, but I like that to me is horrific. It's if somebody says to me, you can't be a Jew, Sheldon, I say, well, there's some things I do that are part of my religion and my culture, but I can't stop walking as a Jew or talking like a Jew. It's just so ingrained within me. I can't take it out.
Right. That's who you are. That's who you are.
Any final thoughts on this before we go back to BB Can? Although I think that this was obviously part of BB Can, and I think a really important part of, now the second season in a row where we've been 50-50 with people of color and white people, changes seen in most reality TV, at least the competitive versions. Any final thoughts?
I will say that it was definitely, once again, I expressed that in the last episode, that was a very touching moment. I think that it's probably not going to be the only discussion that we're going to be having tonight about race. The reason why I'm saying that is probably going to be put up on the live feeds, but we'll discuss that later. But I will say that this is definitely a eye opener for me. And as far as for all the viewers watching at home. So yeah, I would definitely say it's definitely a good thing to touch on once in a while.
Awesome. Well, maybe not awesome, but also awesome because we're learning. So this is a good thing. So we have this really interesting moment. Kyle gets out the door. Summer has her diary room moment where she says basically, hey, I didn't need to be in that room and have that key to do anything because that was my week. That was my week. And you also see this really interesting moment where Jess says, I know they didn't save me. I know they voted Kyle out. Which is a very interesting self-aware moment. So what are your initial thoughts of the aftermath of this Kyle Moore exit?
It was first off, I wanted to let you guys know, I too got a power when I came into this podcast. It was to say it doesn't come into effect until the jury phase. And also, the clue is 12. I just want you guys all to know that. Thank you, BB Can.
Shocker.
Quite the flourish. Kyle Moore on his way out the door. Jess was right. They did not vote to keep you here. They sent Kyle packing. It was a 10-0 vote. It was to show that they did not like this man. It had nothing to do with saving you. So you're still on thin ice. So you need to do something to get in these people's good graces because there's not too many bigger enemies left around here than you.
Yeah, I think like in regarding to Kyle leaving, I was not surprised at all. Like I think that was probably the only episode in BB Camera really I just skimmed right through it because like I knew for a fact like no matter what Kyle was gonna do, he was done.
Yes, there was no in that last episode. There was no amount of campaigning. There was no way they could like convince me that something else was going to happen tonight.
There was nothing. Like even with the Betty and Jess moment, I was like, oh come on, this is filler. Like Betty is not gonna flip the script to save Kyle. It's not happening.
So one of the things that stood out to me in those first few seconds was, at least from the TV perspective, it felt like this was Summer coming into her own and kind of. So I don't know, like I don't feel that we've seen Summer be a power player that's a little bit hidden, but it almost felt like that moment in that diary room, she was saying, "I'm here to play, and they better watch out. I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing because I'm going to destroy them." Like it sort of felt to me like she was realizing how good she is.
You know who I feel bad for, Sheldon?
Who, me?
That coworker that Summer hated
Oh
came on their favorite show because not only are you watching this person you hate on your favorite show, you're watching her play well and be good at it and well liked. And she's only here because she hates you so much. And that I feel bad for that person.
Do we believe you
are? Yeah, I do.
That doesn't feel like Summer to me anymore.
What are you talking about?
She's not petty.
Okay. Here's the thing. Like, I think, like, obviously, with Summer as my one person left in my pool is actually doing decent in the game right now. Thank you very much. I think like the way that the edit is being portrayed is that I think we didn't get enough of Summer, but now I think after Summer managed to get into Gino's ear to pull off the move to backdoor Kyle. That's already a resume move for Summer, and they're highlighting that, saying this was Summer's move, which they basically highlighted that mostly right because JL kind of sealed the coffin for that, but they didn't show it. But the fact that like now they're actually giving the Summer the right recognition that she deserves, hats off to that. I'm happy that she's finally getting the
Why weren't they? Like I don't get it. Summer.
They were giving Kevin too much highlights. I'm like, listen.
So what it is it's tough because Big Brother is not like Survivor in terms of the fact that this is edited within a like 3-day cycle. We only have so many days. We have no idea who wins as the editors, right? So they don't know what story to craft. So as you're like doing it, Summer is hilarious and she's so subtle in her movements that there's nothing that. So like think about the previous host, right? She didn't make Jay go home. She didn't make what's her face the very first week go home. Melina. She wasn't instrumental in those votes. She was instrumental in the flip on Kyle Moore, but it was much more important to tell the rise and fall of Kyle Moore over those 3 episodes.
I like that he's Kyle Moore and not Kyle. That's
yes. It's the rise and fall of Kyle Moore 2.0.
Yeah.
0.5.
And what's funny,
I'm not really sure.
And what's funny is that Kyle Moore from this season got the exact same placement as Kyle Moore from last season. They were both 4th boots.
Well, I'm sure Kyle Moore last season wasn't nearly as messy.
Well,
debatable. Debatable.
You're gonna have to catch up, Kevin. Well, I want more. I want more Summer. The second she gets on that TV, I stop taking notes.
Light up.
Like I sit with my laptop and I'm taking notes about what happened in every episode. She comes on, I'm like, notes are irrelevant. I just want to watch her do whatever the hell.
Yeah.
Is she playing a game? Yes, maybe. Is she giving me jokes and sass? I want it all. I want all of Summer all the time.
Listen, I have some more gushing about Summer to do in a minute, so keep it going.
Okay, so we go to our HOH competition, which is a really fun HOH competition. Basically, the players have to answer yes or true and false questions about what they see behind the doors in the Big Brother house. So there have been these dozens of doors that they couldn't open. 5 of the doors finally open, and behind the 5 doors are BB Can alumni, Spicy V, Victoria, Cindy with an S, Jedson, Godfrey, Anthony, who got thicker than I've ever seen before. He almost scared me a little bit, but holy crap! It looks like he hasn't left the gym since he got out of the BB Can house a few years ago. And you go through the true and false questions. And who won the HOH? Jess.
Before we get into that, though,
yes,
Summer continually going to Jetson's door
and
to
not stopping. She
yeah,
needed him. She needed Jetson. She needed him. Who doesn't?
Kept opening the door, not really looking around the stuff, just wanted to keep looking at Jetson. And that was hilarious to me. Cindy, how come y'all didn't tell me about this Cindy with the S before? I don't know who this person is.
So Cindy with an S, and here's the thing: is that they basically took iconic moments from each of their seasons. So with Victoria with the shock face, that was when Victoria won the invisible.
Spoiler alert.
The invisible HOH round when she backdoor Austin. That's spoilers for that. And
she wasn't invisible HOH.
So the invisible HOH, the way that it works is that it's basically you compete for HOH. Nobody knows who won.
Oh, like
paranoia sets in, huh?
Like a secret HOH.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So it's like a secret HOH, yeah. So that was one moment. Then you have the Jetson who was evicted first, but then all of a sudden there was a secret room being like, "Psych, you're not fully out of the game yet. You have a shot to get back in." That was when Jetson was reading the thing. Then you have Anthony winning veto, I think at final 5 or 6. Yes, I think it was one of the moments that he won veto where he was just flexing his biceps. And then lastly, you got Sydney, who literally had the shocking moment when she was about to cry and putting Netta up because she was the HOH that round. That was one of the biggest. That was one of the top 3 moments of EBK history. Yeah. Then lastly, you got Godfrey, who I think survived the block. Yeah, he survived. Okay, so here's what's funny. So quick history. Zach put up his number 1 ally, JP or Jordan. Okay, he put his number 1 ally up as a pawn to make
Carhart.
We're working together.
I know that name.
Yeah. So when Godfrey got put up on the block, he was sure he was going home, but the vote was 6-5, and he barely survived the block. So he jumped up for joy and let's go! That was the moment right there.
So that was him. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, that's BB knowledge from all those iconic.
Because none of those people meant anything to me.
If you would watch the show, you would fall in love with Spicy.
I just got here.
And you will fall in love with Cindy. That was the moment.
I'm already in love.
I'm not the biggest Cindy fan. She's okay. So we see Jess win. What do y'all think about this win by Jess? Is it something Jess needed for their game?
Just needed it.
Yes.
Needed it badly.
Yeah.
Jess could go home at any moment. Right? Jess could go home at any moment. So if they are in the HOH seat for a little while, then that means that is one less week they can go home. And you would think that as a HOH, you would be able to create a structure for you to be able to survive come later rounds, unlike Kyle Moore, right? So you just watched this horrific HOH happen 2 weeks ago. The last thing you want to do is do the same. So if you're Jess, you're like, cool, I have now won HOH. I can now do some things to put myself in a good position to continue on in this game. So I think it was a good HOH win. Something they needed.
Yeah. I think this was the perfect. This was if you were to call it perfect timing in BB Can, in terms of the way the game is play out, this is literally perfect timing for Jess. Not one round earlier or 1 round later. This is legit the round that Jess need to win. The HOH. Reason being is that I guarantee that if anybody were to win HOH that round, Jess is 100% either going to be going up as a pawn or probably the target or the.
Jess is never a pawn, my friend. Jess is never a pawn.
Jess was the pawn for Kyle.
No, Jess was not the pawn. Jess was the backup target. Jess is not a pawn. Is someone you don't want to go. Jess is someone that anyone is fine with. Also,
okay, fair enough. Enough. Okay. Target or backdoor target. Okay, so Jess needed the HOH win.
So I think one of the flaws so far in Jess's game, and I agree with both of you. They needed this win. They needed the win really, really badly to try to create something. But then, as they won HOH, they go to the diary room and they have this little spiel about how difficult it was to be the odd one out when they were in school as a youth. And what struck me was I don't think they still get it. I don't think they get it. Because what Jess said was, maybe now that I have power, people will start bringing their lunch trays to me. So so when you create relationships, You actually have to create real relationships that have nothing to do with power. And the fact that they think that, okay, well, this week, now that I have power, I'm going to be able to make long term friends just because of it, is so flawed. It's so fundamentally wrong and not the way to play Big Brother, let alone life, that it was so clear to me in the moment they're going to fuck this up.
Yeah, I think with Jess, they completely are looking at the HOH win the wrong way. Like the HOH win gives you more time to like build in some more close interpersonal connections with the rest of the house. You do not want to take full advantage of it and say like, oh, hey, now they can finally come to me and finally talk to me. That's not how it works. It's all about like communication is a two-way street. So like if you were talking really much to most of the house guests when Kyle was up on the block, there's a problem, meaning that your social game was lacking in that aspect. So just because you're HOH and people are going to come up to kiss your ass just so that you don't make them touch you on the block, it's not a good extent enough reason to make these people want to talk to you, because once your HOH reign is over, you're basically still the target next. Yeah. So I think Jess should probably look at this maybe from a different angle and actually be really, really more personal with it. But I really think Jess looked at it the wrong way, in my opinion.
I agree.
You then get into the scene where you see Herman, Summer, and T being a little bit annoyed. They didn't win HOH. And Herman saying, Summer, stop throwing this stuff. What are you doing? Get to work. When it's time to win, you got to win something. Huh?
Oh, my gosh. Herman, listen, if Summer got the lowest score out of everybody, you know who threw the comp. Like, I bet you're trying to...
what Summer did.
That's debatable. That's debatable. That's up for Summer to know if she actually did. I think she threw it. I don't know if she actually did, but I think she did.
I think Jetson was Summer's. It was the only thing on Summer's mind, and she couldn't think.
Probably that too.
So I think it's funny because I think Summer has been throwing comps. I think Summer think about Summer's position in the house, right?
Yeah.
Summer doesn't need to win anything.
No,
she absolutely does not.
Does not need to win anything. So,
but is it a bad move in the sense that she is aligned with T, she is aligned with Herman? Is it not a bad move for her not to take one for the team and go get some power?
I think like had she won HOH, her cards would have been shown. I think she didn't want her I think she doesn't want her cards to be shown at all. Besides Josh, she is the only other person that's aligned with almost every single person in the house, and I bet whoever wins HOH was not going to put up Summer regardless, except for maybe Jess. So I kind of agree that Summer should have at least pushed a little bit and then target Jess, but I don't know. I think Summer really didn't need any kind of HOH wins except maybe jury phase at this rate.
We then see this really interesting come see my HOH room where Jess comes and brings everybody in, and we realize that Jess has a family. And Jess has a cat named Crumb, and that was about it.
My favorite part about that scene was just saying, some of you guys, I think it was Moose that was like, oh, same as your cat. And here we are, 4 weeks in, and people don't know who Jess's cat's name is.
Isn't that an indictment of Jess?
Yep, yeah, 100%. Especially because Jess was on the block week 1. So you should have been
6, and not and they'll be on the block coming forward.
But that's the point, Sheldon, is that if you were in trouble to start the game, you should be doing whatever it takes to get out of that position. And so for you to know that people don't even know who your cat is, it means you're not doing a good job of making yourself ingratiated to this group, because people are doing stuff around you. You have to be doing what you need to do to be well liked. You can't just be sitting in a corner and say, well, they just don't like me. That's ridiculous.
I 1000% agree with Kevin here, which I think that definitely capitalizes Jess's position and social capacity for this game, is that Jess basically decided to be the loner the second Herman put them on the block. It's like Jess basically cried in a corner for like 2-3 weeks, and then all of a sudden when Jess won HOH, it's like, who wants to know about me? What happens if what happens when your week is over? It's back to the corner you go. Like,
I think it's worse than that, Josh.
Yeah.
It's not even like a who wants to know about me. It's why don't you guys know about me? It's like, what do you?
That's the irony part about it.
What have you been doing?
You see what I mean?
So, Josh, what has Jess been doing? Like, you're watching the live feeds. Is Jess sitting by themselves? Like, what's going on?
Not really. Jess is just chilling with the oddballs, aka Betty and Kevin. And maybe Helena to some extent, and Marty. So, like,
do they talk about anything? Like, are they looking at each other the entire day?
Jess was like, honestly, out of 99% of the conversations that I've seen with Jess, it's all game bot. Like,
only game.
Nothing emotional, nothing personal.
Nothing
it was
human.
99% game. I'm like, what are you doing?
As a super fan that Jess is, how, like, do they just not get it? Like they just don't get it, eh?
No, like, I think like those who are quote unquote super fans, those are the ones that are obviously going to burn themselves because all they're going to do is focus too much on game and not too much on the communications or social aspects. And sometimes you're going to have those socially awkward people, like, like that's just part of the game. This is a learning experience for them. So obviously Jess needs to get outside their comfort zone just to actually adapt and play the game. And so far, Jess hasn't really compromised for that. So it's not looking good.
We see Jess have their first game conversation as HOH with Kevin. Kevin says Jess Jess thinks he's their number one. And
he makes it very clear that Jess is not my number one.
Jess is not mine. Jess is not my number one, but they think I'm their number one. So let's start having some fun with some Jess. They have this really interesting conversation about who to nominate and what to do next. And there's two big takeaways out of this. They sort of talk about, hey, maybe we should try to ingratiate ourselves with JL and Gino because they're on an island alone, and 2 islands of 2 alone equals a nice power of 4. Right after Jess says to Kevin, I think I should put up Gino and Herman because they both put me up. Okay, so there's Kevin saying, yeah, stay off of Gino for now. Maybe we should work with Gino and JL because they're alone. And then Kevin suggests, I think you should put up Herman and Moose. What do you think about this interaction?
That basically shows that Jess was not playing for themselves. They were basically playing for Kevin, because had Jess actually thought for a second, being like, okay, let me look at the landscape of the game. Who are the people running the game? Who are the people that are most intertwined? Or how can I use those people to get myself better with some other people? Because Summer is basically tied in with everybody. Everybody loves Summer. Nobody wants to take Summer out. So if you want to take a shot at a big player, put Summer up right next to Herman or Moose. Okay, sure. But another thing you also want to point out, Gino and Herman both put you on the block. So that would be a perfect logical reason to start off being like, hey, you know what? I'm putting both of you on the block just for the sole purpose that both of you nominated me. Okay, Gino might go home for this, but that's fine. But the thing is, it will be the perfect opportunity to pull off a backdoor plan, because as the weeks have shown, every single person who has been on the block has 1 veto. So if you wanted a backdoor target, you could easily put up a bigger target if you want. That's what I think. I think Jess didn't I think Jess looked a little too much at what Kevin said and didn't really look at the whole landscape of the game. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
Worse than that. I think it's even worse than that because Jess is a super fan, legitimately.
Yeah,
actually a super fan, but Jess is not in a good position.
Absolutely not.
Not at all.
I don't know if there's any salvaging anything for Jess at this point.
Correct.
You're a month into a game and you have no friends.
But their one friend is the one that you two said was going to be out week 1, and that was Mr. Kevin. And Kevin has done a phenomenal job at placing himself as a fulcrum position for the outcasts. He is essentially their king. And so when Kevin has some ideas for how Jess could play this HOH, Jess is like, yeah, Kevin thinks like me. What we're going to do is Kevin's going to help me do what's best for me. But all Kevin has done what's best for Kevin. And it's a great, great move. And Jess doesn't even realize it completely.
Well, I think it goes back to just fitting in again and this feeling of, oh my God, this is the one person in this house that I fit in with and is willing to be my friend and is able to talk to me. So if he says something to me, I'm going to do exactly what he says. And it's just this complete, I'm sorry, lack of confidence on their part.
Yeah. And I think that's also a lack of, I wouldn't say self-awareness because I think they're very self-aware. I just think like they're very, very lacking of reading the room in terms of like who are the big targets.
Even worse, like not even the self-awareness or like reading the room. I think they don't know how to
interact with humans
or navigate.
I'm being picked on, and so the answer is to just sit and be picked on. That's not how you change the tides. Yeah. But all they do is just say, well, I'm just going to be an outcast. I'm glad Kevin talks to me. And that's just kind of it, which is ridiculous. But that's what we're watching happen.
We see the parade go into Jess's room, but the parade doesn't seem as excited and interested in talking game with Jess this week. We see Herman go in, very short, very quick, very unfruitful conversation where basically Herman says, hey, you should probably align with a very strong player. And then Jess looks at him like they don't really believe in anything that they say. Moose comes in and says, yeah, I have been saying your name, Jess. You're absolutely right. But,
No.
And then,
Sheldon, you're underplaying it. Moose comes in and says, I might have said it like a couple times. Exactly. Like once or twice. I mean, I think, and then things changed a little bit. But in reality, Moose is like, I've been saying it consistently and constantly.
Well, and the takeaway for Jess was, you know what? You actually might be very helpful to me in my GameBot, because you have this big target on your back. And I like when people have targets on their back because that takes the target off of me. And Moose is like, don't care, walks out and literally goes into the diary room and says, well, hello, Block. Nice to see you.
Ring. Hello. Good to see you, the Block.
Oh, my God.
Again, I think we see this common denominator of Jess's inability to form real relationships or really see in the eyes of the person across from them what's going on. Are they buying what's going on or are they not?
Yeah, and here's what's funny with the whole Moose interaction thing with Jess. I think when Moose said that basically alarmed Jess, and then that's when Moose went to the diary room being like, well, hello, Block City. That just made me die laughing when Moose found the Moose basically figured out I'm basically touching the block. That's kind of what's funny to me.
We go to Wendy's. It's time to eat. Kevin, could you remind me? Do you know what they ordered? Was it chicken? Was it spicy chicken?
Summer let me down.
Summer let me
not only ordered the spicy chicken sandwich,
but
she said, you love me. I love me some spicy chicken sandwich.
What's wrong with that?
I told you it's a popular seller here in Canada. They love this spicy chicken. Man.
And the spicy chicken is probably really good. I'm not even knocking the chicken. It's the fact that everyone seems to only eat the chicken.
Did Jess eat the chicken?
Yes, also ordered a spicy chicken sandwich and asked Summer if she wanted some poutine, and she said, "Of course, I want some poutine."
I love everything about this. We see our two former winners. Spoiler
Pax
alert:
Bros.
The Pax Bros. You see Nick come in and have this weird, meta conversation about painting that I couldn't keep up with. I didn't know what the heck he was saying, and then Phil says, "Just close your eyes and visualize winning Big Brother." But let's talk about the choice of bringing Summer in. Why Summer? Does this make sense?
So Jess feels okay. The dumbest thing about all this is that Jess is utilizing these things correctly, but has no way on how to extract the information that they want. For instance, there's no follow through. Just yes. So you talk to Moose and you're trying to see if Moose is going to give you information, but Moose has no incentive to give you information. There's been nothing you said that made Moose feel like they can trust you. You bring Summer up because you know that how well connected Summer is. So you're hoping that you can get what happened with Kevin and Gino last week and learn some things. Now, obviously, Kevin learned more from Gino than Gino learned from Kevin, but that are from Josh. That's what Josh, Kevin, and Marty. That's what I'm saying. Marty learned more about Kevin than Kevin.
A lot of names.
You know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
No, we don't know what you're talking about.
What I'm saying is that when Marty brought up Kevin, Marty spilled everything to Kevin. And in this situation, Jess was hoping to learn a bunch from Summer. But there's no reason for Summer to talk to you. You have done nothing to create a relationship, even in this moment. Yes, you have the Wendy's, but you didn't connect with Summer to get information from Summer.
Yeah, I think that was kind of like, here's the thing, like Jess choosing Summer was the golden move, because it's like you could easily just feed out the right information, because Summer knows a lot of what's going on in the house. But Kevin is absolutely right again. Like, Jess did not build a solid connection enough with Summer to get the info or the tea on what's going on in the house. And that's the problem, is that if you can't build solid relationships, you can't get people to trust you enough to give away some info. So, and that's basically social communications 101. If you can't get people to trust you or build a good foundation of who you are as a person, they can't trust you enough to give you some info.
On top of all that, there's a strong misread in this house, because Kevin feels like Tanisha is running everything, and Tanisha is not the one running everything. Summer
is.
It's Summer. So the information they're looking to hear from Summer is about Tanisha's master plan. But why would Summer tell them about her own master plan? It doesn't make sense.
It makes no sense.
I sort of got this feeling about this Summer choice as not even as strategic as you two think. I got this feeling that Jess is like, I just want to sit at the cool kids table, so let's bring Summer in because that's a cool kid.
So the only reason I fully believe it was a strategic choice is because one thing that was on feeds that we didn't get to see in the episode was that Jess was, when feeds came back up after the HOH, Jess was conducting interviews with people on who to take to Wendy's.
Why did they not show that though?
I don't know.
Moose was pitching that first too. That's what's funny.
But Jess was conducting interviews on who to take to Wendy's, and when they talked to Kevin, which was on the feeds, Kevin's like, "Don't take me. Don't take anyone. You need to take Summer, because Summer knows the most information about T's game." And then they were like, oh, "Okay, that's a great idea."
And the best part of the whole thing is that, like, Jess did not learn anything about T's game through Summer. That's what's funny. I'm like, why?
So Jess has this new idea. I want to put up Moose and Herman, but before I put the two of them up, I'd like to let them know that they're going up. And hopefully, because I tell them they're going up, they're going to give me some fun information. This was the strategy that Jess has.
Sheldon, explain this to me.
No, I can't. So Jess goes up to Moose and says, hey, you're going up. And Moose is like, oh, no, not me. You should probably put up Kevin and Betty. Wrong read, Moose. You should put them up because they're not strong players.
Is that the wrong read, though? I mean,
I think that's
obviously Jess is obviously not going to do it because they're close, but he's not going to suggest people he's actually working with. He's not working with those two.
Okay, but the wrong read wasn't that. The wrong read was you're picking the two people that Jess might have a chance to work with. And so if you want to dig your own grave,
they were never going up over you. They were never going to go up over you.
So say nothing, because then we obviously have to see Moose doing some damage control. But the strangest conversation was with Herman.
No, that wasn't the strangest. That was the best conversation.
Oh no,
Herman
the best? I don't know what that was. It wasn't normal. It was weird.
Yeah, because like Herman.
Jess is like, let me just tee this up. Jess says you're going up. Okay, thank you. Herman says that's great to know. And then Jess says, if you would have won HOH, who would you have put up? And Herman's answer is, I'm not going to tell you my game information. You just told me you're putting me up. Why do you think in any normal world I would give you anything?
Here's the thing, like Herman,
like the victim. Oh, angry Herman. Why didn't you tell me information?
It's even worse than that, because they go to Herman and they say, I'm probably putting you up, but if you were HOH, who would you have put up? And Herman's like, I don't know. Maybe, who knows? Who knows who I put up? And then they're like, so you're telling me that it wasn't me? I'm not telling you anything. And they said, well, wouldn't you be telling me that it wouldn't be me if I was the HOH? Herman says, you already told me you're putting me up. What does it matter who I say? I'm not going to tell you any names because you've already said you're putting me up. So why would anything I tell you right now change what you're already going to do? And then Jess says, well, I'm the HOH. You should be kowtowing to me and doing what I need you to do. So give me information so I can still put you up and try to burn you with it. And her mom's like,
says, no.
And then why would I do that?
Says, bro.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I love that Herman shut Jess down with this.
Yes.
It's like you do not, under any circumstance, tell somebody that you're planning to put them on the block, and then ask them, be like, oh, so like if you were to win HOH, who would you put up? No, it's just supposed to be doing it the other way around.
And even the other way around, Herman gives no information because Herman does not trust Jess. There's no reason. There's no game relationship there. Jess has done nothing to build these relationships. So for you to think that just because you now have a key around your neck means that these people are going to just spill everything. There's some that will, and Herman's not one of them. So for you to think that you're going to be able to strong arm Herman into telling you what was going to happen, what he was going to do, get out of here, man. Get out of here.
So we see next up a little bit of character development for Betty. Okay. Jess tells Betty, hey, Betty, just so you know, Moose threw out your name.
Moose wasn't fast enough getting to her.
What?
He wasn't fast enough to get to her.
No, he's not as fast as a real moose. He's looking there. So not fast enough. So and Jess says, don't go ahead and don't confront anybody. Everything will be okay. And then, fast forward 2 seconds later, we're in the kitchen trying to eat or cook or do whatever. Who's there? Moose is sitting there and just says, why did you think it's a good idea? Betty says, why do you think it's a good idea to put my name and throw my name out there? And confronts Moose. Betty can't control herself. Betty can't chill. What is that?
So I was watching this on the feeds when this happened.
Same.
Because I saw some clips on the internet on the good old Twitter box.
By the way, I love that, Kevin. You watch more feeds than me. I love it.
I love to know what's happening when I'm trying to do it. And luckily, thank God for Twitter. There's people updating consistently, and I know what's going on most of the time. So watching the clips as they were happening of Betty telling Moose, why would you say my name? Why would you say anyone's name? You don't know my game. Why are you out here throwing out names? Well, Betty, you were just in the HOH room throwing out names too. So for you to then come at Moose, who's very calm and very quiet, and just yelling at him was insane. And then for old Moose there to be like, okay, well, I just wanted to tell you what was going on. Do you want to hear it? I don't want to hear from you, Moose. Okay, then I guess I won't tell you what's going on. That's fine.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, I think Betty should have at least heard Moose out. I think Betty got a little too emotional hearing that from Jess. And this is the problem with Betty is that when someone throws her name off, she gets pissed and blows up at the person. So not quite sure if that's an effective strategy, but it's coming off a little too messy in my opinion. I think that what Betty should have done is had a calm conversation with Moose, being like, "Why did you throw your name out to Jess?" Yeah,
business B knows no calm.
Although they haven't seen this in the house, this conversation felt to me a little bit like Will Smith versus Chris Rock. So there is Chris Rock, who's Moose, who pokes the bear and says a joke about Will Smith's wife and says you should go on the block. And there's Will Smith who can't just chill, who can't take a breath and take it as a joke and goes and slaps him across the face. Betty slaps them across the face. The question I have is, what does this mean for Betty's game? Because this isn't the first time we're in a bit of an uncomfortable situation where Betty's under pressure. Betty reacts like this, where there's a little bit of this volatility. There's a little bit of emotion controlling strategic thought or calmness. What does this mean? Do the people around Betty say, I don't know if I can work with that, or we want that around because that's a big target away from us?
I think that people wanted Betty out for a while. It's just that people like Kyle, people like
bigger targets. Same thing with Jess.
Bigger targets. Yeah, like they were also the fact that like they wanted to keep Betty around just for the fact of the entertainment thing. But I know that at any certain point, if Betty were to touch the block, she's done.
I don't think that's true. I think Business B stays over Jess. I think Business B stays over Kevin.
Yeah,
I think Business B stays over Marty.
Kevin,
fair enough. Like maybe with those three
over Marty. I don't know.
Okay, so let's just real fast. Let's play it out, right? Marty's on the block next to Business B, right? Herman's voting on Marty.
Yeah.
Herman's voting on Marty. Tanisha and Summer are both voting on Marty, right?
Moose voting Marty.
Moose is voting Marty as well. Gino and JL are going to vote Betty. Helena votes Marty. That's 5. Marty goes home. Same with Kevin. Kevin goes home.
Jess goes home. That's fair.
One of the other things I forgot to mention in that conversation, and I feel like I'm shitting on Jess today, but why Jess comes in to tell Betty about the Moose convo and that he said her name, because I need to get some advice from Betty because she's in HR. What? 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 What does that mean?
Human resources, so she knows how to talk to people. And then I tell her, and then she flies off the handle. I was very confused. That's so why she would do that. Yes, I have known about her going after Kevin for the last 3 weeks, but I ignored that because it seemed like the right move.
I don't.
Yeah. Like, and here's an interesting thing. Just because Betty says that she works at HR, I think after the blow-ups, I don't think her job occupation matters anymore when you're in the house. It's how you behave in the house is what counts. It's like everything people say and people do is notes.
So as a question, because I've been thinking a little bit about this, it has nothing to do with this episode. Did Josh tell them he's a doctor?
No, he did not.
What did he say? Do you know?
When people ask him what his occupation was, he just
I don't know what he's. We didn't.
I don't think he said. I think he.
We know he didn't say he was a doctor because when Kyle goes up the house last week, Arissa mentions Dr. Josh, and he yelled, "He's a doctor too!" And so he did not tell him that he's a doctor. I have no idea what he told him instead, but Kyle did say that last week when he went out the house.
I don't want to belabor this, but I always wonder, what do you tell people when you go into the house? Like, if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, do you keep that a secret? Dr. Will didn't keep it a secret, and it worked out for him. But I don't know. I think that's an interesting thought. Anyways, we get to the noms. Shocker. Jess nominates Herman and Moose. Herman does this weird dance as he goes up to sit in the chair.
He crip walked right over to the block, and it made Jess mad.
Jess was pissed. And the other one was, of course, Moose. Not a personal level choice, just strategic choice, which also says that, well, Herman was a personal level choice. So Jess is basically saying, I don't like you, Herman. I don't like you in the game. I don't like what you look like. I don't like anything about you. You're evil to me. Bye-bye. And these two are on the block, ready to fight, and Jess feels like they made a mockery of the ceremony. Thoughts?
I think Jess was like expecting a certain reaction from Herman, but probably was dealt out worse than what they had anticipated. I think, word of advice, if you're going to be going into a nomination, like if you're like HOH and if you're nominating 2 people, expect nothing. Don't expect people to just be like, oh yeah, they're going to be calm about it, or yeah, they're going to be mad about it, or they're going to be something about it. Expect nothing. Like, you're going to be walking away from the nomination ceremony unscathed and relaxed, better than just like anticipating for something that's probably not going to happen. But I was expecting Herman and Gino to be put up on the block. I think just not putting up Gino wasn't really the smartest play, but I think doing Moose and Herman was the better move for right now. Whether that was the right move in the long run, we're going to have to wait and see. But that's my thoughts.
Kevin, what do you think?
I thought it was interesting we didn't get any Gino or JL in this episode at all.
Yep, or Josh.
Or Josh. I thought that was very interesting. I'm okay with it because we got more Summer, right?
But we finally got more Summer after like how many weeks that Summer should have been getting more of a good edit. But hey, you know what?
They shut it down like pretty early by Kevin saying we should be working with them. So then there was that explained away what Jess's plans are, right? That explained it away and put it in a tight little bow.
There was even one quick little scene with JL, but it felt like that scene felt like that should have happened a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like what? We're starting this now when you have power? Anyways, spoiler alert, we're about to hear about live feeds. If anybody does not want to hear the spoilers, doesn't want to hear who won POV, doesn't want to hear who's the new nom, turn this off, but come back to us on Friday when we're going to talk about the double eviction, which is going to be crazy because it seems to be, according to Arissa Cox, not the usual double eviction. So, Josh, we had these two people go up. Herman, Moose on the block. Jess.
Wait, let's give people like 5 seconds to turn the thing off to scramble.
5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, we're good. Don't roll your eyes at me, Kevin. Josh, I stalled long enough. What's been going on in that house? Who won POV? Was it used? What's going on?
Okay, so let me just break it down like a little bit. I would say that this week is probably I would say this next upcoming the Wednesday episode is going to be a little bit more controversial, and the reason why I said that is that earlier in the episode when I said there was going to be a little bit more of a race discussion, I'm going to keep that short and sweet. But let me explain to you why. I'm going to get to that in a second. So after Herman and Moose have been nominated, not even maybe a few 5-10 minutes after, Moose and Jess have an argument. And then at one point when Moose was in the HOH room with Jess, and I want to highlight this a little bit because I want to know what your thoughts are. Moose accidentally said Jess's pronouns wrong, and Jess went on hammer towards Moose. What are your what is both your guys' thoughts on that? Because that's definitely something that's new, and I don't know how to feel about this.
So, one thing that was being said on Twitter was that, and this was said by Steph.
Yes.
Right. Former house guest, Steph, in the house 2 weeks ago, Steph, was that Moose has done a very good job intentionally of making sure, even when Jess is not in the room, that they're addressing Jess by their proper pronouns at all times. Anytime someone messes up, they have corrected them. Steph said this, who was in the house. So during this argument on the feeds, Moose is trying to defend himself against the slander that Jess has unleashed with Betty, because Betty is having another round with Jess, and with Moose in front of Jess, and he's confronting Jess about what happened, telling them, "I never said Betty was useless. I never said that she was useless." And while he was getting wrapped up in this conversation, he did say she and her twice. Well, at that point, this is after Herman's crip walking. This is after Moose has done a fake shock face. We all saw how Jess looked in the episode. Jess has decided that they hate both of them, and they are going to do whatever they can to destroy them. And when a small slip up accidentally happened, all of a sudden Jess was going in as if it was intentional, and it was gross how they were attempting to paint Moose.
Yeah, and then later on, not even when the conversation was over, Jess was going around to other people, in terms of with the conversation that Jess had with Moose, saying that Moose was being aggressive. Explosive, aggressive and explosive. Yeah. So that
Sheldon.
then this is where things got interesting. Before we go to the picks for the POV, they were discussing about a massive topic called privilege. Summer, Herman and Moose all had a discussion on that, and I believe Helena was in there too. They all had a discussion about that two POCs are sitting up on the block, and then they realized that Jess, who is behaving towards Herman and Moose, is very, very how can I describe it? It's basically not very sitting well with themselves, and including with the fans on Twitter. Everyone is ramming Jess for that. So Kevin, I wanted to know from your perspective on this, what are your thoughts?
So as I'm only following through the Twitter space, right?
Yes.
That's all I
Yes,
did.
but just through
The
Tinder.
The Twitter space. And so I have obviously a slant, right? I can see a slant, but at the same time, I watch as many clips as I can. And watching, there are a couple of things that Justice said that has been quite incendiary. Calling Moose explosive. As we've watched Moose diffuse stuff, we watched Moose get yelled at by Betty. So for you to think that Moose, I mean, Sheldon, what did I say Moose was here for from day one?
He's here just have a good time.
He's here to vibe, baby. So for you to say that he's explosive, insane. Jess has also said that Herman and Moose make them uncomfortable. These are terms that are used against Black men to make us seem much more dangerous than we are. We're just regular people. But now Jess is feigning as if they are afraid of them.
Yeah.
And the conversation that I heard Summer having was about how they all have friends that are more inclusive, right? I'm talking to two white guys right now. Herman, Summer, T, Moose, Helena, Betty. They're having a conversation. They're talking about how they're more inclusive in their friend groups. They don't know if that's the case for Marty. They don't know if that's the case for Jess. So for them to be targeting them, it's a little bit, shows a little bit where they're at.
Yeah, and what's even more interesting is that, and this is where this is starting to become a racial divide. Reason being is that Jess decided to form a new alliance with Marnie, Gino, JC, and Kevin, the 5 remaining white people in the house. But
you saw Kevin suggested last night. Right, you saw Kevin suggest we should work with JL and Gino, and then bring in Marty. This. There's no Helena. There's no Betty here in this conversation. There's no even Josh, and Josh is close to Jess.
And Josh is close to JL and Gino. So missing out Josh and that key factor was definitely not good. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a lot of controversial discussions, which might get shown. I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see. But moving on from that, we are now going to go into the veto picks and then veto win. I'm going to skim through that real quick. So the veto competition is about to begin, and Moose and Herman got their picks. They got JC Lynn, Josh, and Marty. Those 3 will be competing with Moose and Herman. So skim right through. We don't know what the competition is. However, we do know for the 5th week in a row, someone who was nominated won veto.
Whoa.
So 50-50 guess. Is it Moose or Herman? Sheldon?
Well, I know the answer, so I'll say Herman.
Okay, it's Herman. Herman won veto. Kind of a poetic justice on the first week when Jess won veto on Herman's HOH, and now Herman winning the veto in Jess's HOH. So that's definitely poetic justice right here. So obviously, with Jess's target being Herman, is now off the block, we now go into a very key conversation, and this was kind of very interesting, and this would kind of led to the downfall of a backdoor target. So what happened is that after Herman was put off the block, he got in with Summer, Tanisha, Moose, Helena, all those people to say we need to get Kevin up on the block. Here's the big problem. He was doing that all day, trying to get those people to convince Jess to put up Kevin. And what does Jess do?
What?
Puts up Tanisha.
So before we get to that,
hold on. They wouldn't put up Kevin anyways. That's their
correct.
best.
Kevin was never going up. Kevin was never going up. So actually what happened was, Josh is correct about what the end result, but apparently Summer and Tanisha were trying to get Helena put up. And apparently Jess was considering Helena going up. And then your good old boy Marty came in there, and there was a scene that was not shown on the feeds, but Marty was talking about a conversation about talking about a conversation that they had with Jess about why Tanisha needed to be the one to go up. And then, as Josh said, lo and behold, T is the one that does go up. So, and T's pretty upset about it, from what I've understood, because T feels played by Marty because Marty has been using the fact that they're both parents. She thinks as a ploy, right? Because they've connected over that, and they speak French to each other and all these things. And then when Tanisha finds out that from Jess that it was Marty's idea and plan, she's very hurt.
Yeah, and now because of that, we are now like and this is where the voting blocks starting to ensue, because obviously some members of the House are pushing for Tanisha to go, some members of the House are pushing for Moose to go. I think this could be a split vote, but right now it's leaning towards for Moose to go this week. But as the live feeds are going, things are still popping, so things could change.
So much could change. So much interesting stuff happening in the House. A lot of interesting stuff happening in the House that could impact all of us in our lives, and are really, what representative of a lot of the conversations that we're having in our own lives with our own friends and our own families. What a week! What a week! We have our episode.
It gets worse.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Really?
It gets worse. Yeah. Kevin, right before I got on here, I was looking at some stuff. Kevin has a secret alliance with Josh and Helena.
Yep.
The three of them, and they're going to attempt to flip the vote on Tanisha.
Yeah, I told you things could change.
Tanisha, not my winner's pick.
Yeah, they're going to attempt to save Moose, but the attempt to save Moose is for just supreme chaos. In fact, the Kevin that you guys were afraid of is now here. He's here. And he had a conversation with Josh, and he told Josh that he may not win this game, but he doesn't care. He's here for maximum carnage. And so he wants to flip the vote on T, because eventually he's going to have to blindside Jess. Big whoop. And it is going to be what it is. But Josh, you can win this game if you just ride with me and Helena as we make this house as crazy as possible.
Here's my thing with that. And what is interesting is that, like, Josh is the only person besides Summer who is going to be sitting in the best position in the house. So if Josh flips and takes out Tanisha, everybody's going to be mad at Josh. So
even better, though, is that Kevin is trying to orchestrate a 5-4 vote.
Woo!
So that way it is not known who flipped.
Why so early? Can't he wait until jury? Can't he wait until he's for sure? Like, why?
Here's the thing. It is a genius move, though, because one, Tanisha's not going to be on jury. Second, it will be a resume move for Kevin. And guess what? No one's going to look at Kevin as the target. They're going to think Josh did this. It's genius.
Okay, well, time will tell, because we don't know what's going to happen. We got a jam-packed episode coming to all of you on Friday evening, 8 p.m., where we're going to go through the 2 episodes this week, including a crazy double eviction. So it's going to be a lot of great stuff going on. Kevin, what's on your mind before we leave?
Tomorrow, Survivor comes on. Thursday, be here to join with us at 8 p.m. Eastern as myself, Kylie, Robbie, and somebody else. Maybe Frank, maybe Sheldon, maybe Josh. Who knows? Who knows? Right. Someone joins us. Dr. Stan, maybe. Who knows? Someone joins us as we will recap the episode, and you'll hear me talking about how great Marianne is and how wrong Kylie normally is about things.
Wow. And I hope that we're going to be talking about a redemption episode for my girl Chanel, because she needs it after last week. Josh, what's on your mind?
I'll touch base on Chanel later on if you guys bring me back for the Survivor episode. So lots of good stuff. Survivor Wednesday, Thursday Friday for BB Can, then Monday BB Can again, and then Wednesday. Not only you get Survivor, but you also get Survivor Pandemic. The first episode is ready to go, ready to be dropped on Wednesday, April 6th. Get your calendars booked up and ready. If you haven't followed the YouTube page, the link will be in. and we cannot wait to see the chaos ensue with this cast.
I saw you had some of the cast videos up.
Yes, we're dropping 2 character profiles dropped up every single day, so you'll be seeing new faces just to keep everybody entertained up until the drop date. So you'll be seeing all 18 videos before the drop date on the 6th.
Josh, for some people who have never seen Pandemic, any sort of behind this, what should we expect from this season? Because I watched it as part of the production team, and there is some drama about to happen. And any not spoilers, but little teases.
Yeah, so little teases. I will say it is definitely one of the most dynamic and explosive casts in the history of Pandemic. Lots of characters, lots of personalities.
Actually explosive. Not like Moose explosive, but like for real explosive.
Like Betty explosive to a certain extent. Yes. So definitely, this is definitely one of my favorite casts. Out of all the seasons of Pandemic, seasons 1, 2, 5 casts, I love you, but I'm telling you 6 is good. But I will say, stay tuned for the first episode. You will, okay. 4 casts is arguable better than 6. That's just my perception.
5 is much better than all of them put together. Well, it sounds like it's going to be an explosive season, more explosive than what happens to me after I go to Taco Bell. And that's enough for all of us here. See y'all on Friday. For Kevin and Josh, I'm Sheldon. Wow, what a great BB Can week ahead for us. See you soon.
Yeah.